Leonard Gordon Minty was born in Peterborough and grew up at the YMCA. In 1964, representing PCVS, he won 2 gold and a silver at the Eastern Canadian High School Swimming Championships. At Queen's University, his medal performances in the OQAA competition earned him the Clark Trophy for Outstanding Swimmer 3 times, and in 1969, the Jack Jarvis Trophy for Outstanding Athlete. Len raced the first annual Stony Lake Mile Swim in 1960 as a 14-year-old and has progressed through Open and Masters and the Grandfather Division. In 43 swims, he has won his division 31 times. Len races each year to honor his father, Gord Minty. In Masters swimming, Len was the Ontario champion 56 times, Canadian champion 13 times, and a bronze medalist in the 1992 World Championships. He set more than 60 national records covering all 5 strokes and all 6 distances. In 1987, he broke the world 400-meter individual medley record twice. Len's paddling career started in 1974 with 16 consecutive victories in Upper Stoney's annual Gull Rock race. He was a crew member of Sing Fi, am I saying that correctly?
Sing Fi.
Dragon Boat Champions in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, San Francisco, and one more, Najimi in Japan. Currently, he is active in Masters flatwater canoe and kayak racing. For 30 years, Len coached high school athletes who amassed numerous OFSA victories. He has coached dragon boating in Canada and the USA for nearly 20 years, 9 with Peterborough's Survivors Abreast. He was a race director for the Peterborough Dragon Boat Festival from 2001 to 2009. Len Minty, thank you so much for joining me. And when you reflect back on that, does that encapsulate everything for you?
It certainly does. If I didn't know any better, I'd be impressed.
And your swimming, it's quite clear where it comes from for you. It's from your dad, and you have a quote that says that. No, not quite.
It's not quite so clear. Well, my dad was teaching everybody else to swim. Mm-hmm. It's my mom who taught me, and it's my earliest recollection. Everybody likes to know what their earliest recollection is. Mine is my mother letting me go and showing me her hands, and I'm floating on my back, and I can still remember the sensation. It's the earliest sensation I can remember. I was 2 years old.
Was it in a pool?
No, it was at Stony Lake at Camp Camineo, where Dad was the waterfront director during the summer. And so Mom looked after my brother and I, and my dad looked after everybody else.
So it was 2 years old, which is, I don't know, is that young? I'm assuming that's young.
That's pretty young.
Yeah. Okay, so you start off from there, and you have that first moment, and you say you can remember it. So what was it like?
It was the feeling. Yeah. It was an awesome feeling. I can remember looking up and seeing my mother looking down at me, smiling with the sun up behind her, and just showing me her hands to show that I was there by myself. And it was it had quite an impression on me, that's for sure.
What do you take from it then, if it left such an impression on you?
I think I was really meant to be in the water. Mm-hmm. And I've been there ever since. In fact, I was there half an hour ago. So, I've swum really my whole life.
Now, as you go through it, there's, I guess why were you on Stony Lake? Was it a cottage there? Your dad was a camp director there, but you spent a lot of your life there. What was it that kept bringing you back?
Well, my mother took over Juniper Island store, the handling of the store on Lower Stony in 1954. And she did that for 8 years. So I had that marvelous experience of being on Stony Lake. And my wife and I bought a cottage in '73. And we've been there ever since on the island in Upper Stony. So it's a long association with Stony Lake.
You grew up in Peterborough, then went to Queen's University, and then you were a teacher in North York. But was it just that love for that and that first experience that ended up bringing you back?
Well, it's my love for Peterborough that ended up bringing me back here. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have come earlier, but it wasn't easy to do. I certainly inquired a few times, and I was basically stuck in Toronto for my career. Mm-hmm. But this wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
So I had quite a good career there.
Okay, so you took your passion for swimming and for paddling, and you coached as well. And now maybe that's what you got from your father. I know that there's
Oh,
a
I'm
quote.
sure.
Yeah, there's a quote from you where you say that you watched him do that for so much because it did so much for him personally. And I'm paraphrasing at this point in time, but then you keep on doing the exact same thing. Now, wanting to take your experience and share it with others, is that the reason why you coach?
I believe so. Yeah, I always admired my dad. He was very well known in this area. He certainly taught a lot of people to swim. He set up swimming things all over the Kawarthas. Some of them many of them are still going today, and he started them back in the 50s.
Wow.
Yeah, but my actual race swimming, if you like competitive swimming, started the day I was 8, September 6th, 53, because you had to be 8 years old to join the Y. So that's the day I joined the Y. I looked forward to it for years. And immediately I was on Dad's swim team. And I actually brought in a picture of that first swim team. You can see a little 8-year-old skinny kid there. And swam, of course, for the Y until I was 18 and went to Queens. And I have a picture of my last swim team here in 64 as well. So that's where I started. And swimming at the Y was a very interesting thing. As many people in Peterborough know, we swam naked because there was the YMCA. There was no women, there was no girls. So we all swam naked. We had to buy a bathing suit when we went to an away meet, and we found it quite an encumbrance, actually. But we'd line up at Eaton's in Peterborough in the mail order to order two-piece, two-ply nylon bathing suits. We just kept them for when we went around to different places to race.
Is that something you still try and pull off to these days in the lake?
No. No, but there are lots of embarrassing times in the 62, 63 when girls started to come to the YMCA. We didn't get used to it for a while.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just it's honestly, it's baffling. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you know when you say it that it sounds baffling to a lot of people, but there you go.
Oh no, it's just natural.
Times change.
It's natural for us.
And that was aerodynamics?
No, but you had to learn to dive carefully.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's no, it wasn't really aerodynamics. It was just a case where you didn't need to have a bathing suit, so you didn't have one.
Okay.
It was simple.
Now, talking about bodies, swimmers' bodies. There's a type, right? And you kind of fit that in terms of your length. That's when you look at Olympic swimmers, they're a similar build. And how much do you find that helped you? Where you say you're meant to be in the water, you kind of have the prototypical build of a swimmer.
I have some of the pluses. I have a few of the minuses. At 6'2", my height's fine. Very long arms, but small hands, and only size 9.5 feet. So I would have liked to have had size 15 feet, and I would have loved to have had a hand a lot larger. I know in the 2008 Olympics, I was looking on a write-up, and they put a hand print of the size, the average size of the hand for the 8 swimmers in the 100-meter finals. Wow, gee, it went out this much further than mine, and it was the girls. It wasn't even the men. So large hands are like paddles.
Yeah.
Feet are like flippers. Could have used those. Could have used a longer trunk too. I'm making lots of excuses.
No, well, this is all something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like I look at you and I think that guy looks like a swimmer,
Yeah.
but you're telling me that there are some things that are different. Like, what is a perfect swimmer? Tell me. So you need larger feet, you need larger hands, and a different trunk size.
Tall sitting is a plus. Dan Thompson and I, a good friend of mine, marvelous swimmer. I'm about 1.5 inches taller than he is when we're standing. As soon as we sit, I'm looking up at him because he's shorter legs, longer trunk. That type of thing helps. But a long boat is faster than a slow boat, a short boat. And the average swimmer now, if you look at today's swimmers, wow, They're built like me, but 6 inches taller and about 40 pounds stronger. And they really are very, very powerful people. And the average height of a girl in the finals of the 100 will be about 6'2".
Okay.
So long boats, faster than short boats, same as swimmers.
What toll does swimming take on your body? For soccer players, football players, like it's going to be your knees. And what's the big operator for a swimmer that ends up, like say when you get a little bit older, that starts to ache because of all the work you did?
I'm glad to say, if you do it properly, nothing. If you do a flip turn and hit your heels, you'll have heel burns. I might do that once a year. There's nothing really to go wrong. It's sort of all or nothing. You either drown or you stay alive in water.
Yes.
And you can overdo your shoulders, so you have to do exercises for those. You can overdo your elbows. But basically, you can swim your whole life, as I do. And you don't get hurt.
And they're more just the same benefits as running or riding a bike, I guess, for a lot of people.
Well, it certainly has the aerobic benefits, but I used to run, started to get a sore back. Running is much harder on you. Swimming is a lot easier, and you can go a lot longer. Same aerobic benefits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, when people look at swimming, the sport, not a lot of people get exposed to it. You, obviously, as we've talked about, started very early, but I think most people in here probably wouldn't have ever stepped foot or considered a competitive swimming meet or anything like that. Why do you think that is, and what's your vision going forward for swimming? I know you're still involved, but where do you see it picking up people?
Well, it has a large number of masters swimmers. There are more masters swimmers in the States than there are age groupers. But swimming is a very personal thing. And you don't do it to beat people, because there's always somebody better. You do it for your personal best, see how fast you can get. And as you're an age grouper and you're getting taller, longer, stronger, you naturally will progress. And you always wonder, where are you going to top out? What's the best you can do? So it's a very personal thing, swimming. And I've always felt it's that way. You know, it's personal.
Do you know when you topped out?
I topped out around age 38 or 9, it seems. And it's because my training as a master's swimmer was more intense than my training at the university. Because nowadays, swimmers swim much, much further. Their training programs are very, very intense. While I was doing more training in my 30s and 40s than I was as a kid.
Okay. And now, when we look back at your list of accomplishments, it ranges from, I guess, 1964 to 2009, 2010-ish. I think that was the last race that we have you finishing first in, and that was at Stony Lake, the Stony Lake Mile, I believe.
Oh, well, I've swum that swim 52 times.
Okay.
I missed it this summer.
I think, did everybody miss it this summer? Yes.
Yeah, there was no swim this summer, but because of COVID. But I'm looking forward to next year. And I've worked my way up from the youngest, 14, right through to grandfather. And so I've been winning the grandfathers for the last few years. And there's somebody out there faster, he just hasn't shown up yet, which is an important thing about swimming. There's always somebody better. And when you win a race, it's not that you've won it so much as who showed up. There are better swimmers. If they show up, you don't win. They call you a loser. If the better swimmers don't show up and you happen to be the fastest one there, they call you a winner. And yet, all you're doing is the very best you can. So it's a very synthetic thing, winning. I've always tried to keep it in perspective. And I realized very early on, there's always somebody better. So personal times, your fastest times, are what you really want to do.
Is that a coached mindset or something that you picked up on your own?
It's a coaching mindset. I tried to get that across to my swimmers whenever they won something big. I'd say yes, but who wasn't here?
Mm-hmm.
Like to try to keep it in perspective.
Okay, so going back to 1964, I noticed that's the year that your father passed away
Yes.
as well, and he passed away suddenly from a heart attack. And I know that when people go through adversity, they sometimes dive into.
Just a small correction,
Sure.
perhaps. It wasn't so much, it wasn't a heart attack.
Okay.
He died because he doesn't have something that I have, which is a pacemaker.
Okay.
See it right there. I've had it for the last 20 years. So when I was his age, 54, I ended up getting a pacemaker. I've lived 20 years longer, and I've got a Cadillac model, so I can swim and not be encumbered and paddle. I don't go as fast, but that's for lots of reasons. But my dad died because they just didn't have a pacemaker, and he went into a type of AFib,
All right.
and he didn't come out of it.
So it's a genetic issue, I guess, or a pre-existing issue that you guys were made aware of because of your father?
No, I've always had a low heartbeat because I'm more of a distance swimmer, and my heartbeat got down to 15.
Wow.
That's like a whale, a lazy whale. When you have a heartbeat of 15 at night, something's really, really wrong. And I was sent to see Dr. Hughes, somebody who I'm sure just about everybody in Peterborough my age has seen at one time or another. And he right away, he said, "You need a pacemaker and you need it yesterday." And I remember him pointing to my wife and saying, "Your job's to keep him alive for 2 days." And I just,
Yeah,
it was scary.
Did that pick your heart rate up?
Yes,
Yeah.
that got it over 50.
Yeah.
It was only when I was resting at night it would go down that low. But even sitting reading a book, I'd start missing beats. So it was one of those things, and it just happened to be right at the age my father was when he died.
Wow.
So I can assure people, if you're going to have things go wrong with you, pacemaker is the least of your worries. They're marvelous, marvelous things.
And now a lot of people training in swimming or triathletes, long distance people, they'll be wearing heart chest rate monitors. You would have had a low resting heart rate, I guess, because of all the endurance sports you're participating in. But then would today's technology have picked up on that a little bit sooner, I guess, if you were training with heart rate monitors, or were you doing that?
Well, I've been training basically my whole life, and I get slower, and I complain about it to my wife, who gets tired of me complaining about it. She's happy I'm alive,
Yes.
which is the big plus. But the thing is, you don't notice it.
Okay.
You just notice that the clock seems to go faster, and you seem to be getting slower. Yeah, I feel the very same. My stroke's the same. So I swim the very same as I always did,
Okay.
just slower. There used to be there's a thing in swimming where they say, training never gets easier. You just get faster. Well, training never gets easier for me. I just get slower.
That's okay.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm still here to do it. That's what I like.
Okay, well then let's retract then. Go back to 1964, and where I was jumping off there was when people go through hard times, they can dive into something, they can find something to pull them through it. And I don't know, for a lot of people that can be a sport. Was swimming what that was for you in 1964?
Well, when my dad died, it was a shock. But I was on my way to Queen's, and I didn't swim for 2 years at Queen's. I was involved in other athletic things. It was my last 3 years at Queen's that I swam, a fifth year being at MacArthur College. Now, I've got a good story from MacArthur College.
Okay.
It fits right in right now with swimming at Queen's, which I enjoyed very, very much. I was at the MacArthur College education. It was their very first year at Queen's. And I was on my way home from from the gym. And I noticed some of my classmates coming out of Dunning Hall all dressed up. And I said, "Well, what's going on?" This was a Wednesday, 5 o'clock or so. And they said, "Oh, didn't you hear? North York came down and they were looking at hiring people. They came down early for early hiring. And I thought, well, that's where I want to go, because North York has swimming pools.
Okay.
That's the reason. So I thought, oh, rats. And he said, well, they're just closing up. Now, I'm wearing jeans and my squad jacket, my Queen's jacket.
Yep.
And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. So I walked in and said, hi, I realized I'm late and I didn't have an appointment, but I'd really like to teach in North York next year. And the lady at the desk said, well, it's late now and whatever. But a man stuck his head around the corner, took a look at my jacket with the phonetic letters and things, and said, I can give him a few minutes. Oh, okay. So I went in and sat down. We were just doing some idle talk. And he said, what's your sports? You could tell I did things. I'm a swimmer. Oh, I used to coach swimming. Oh, really? His name was Jack Foote.
Mm-hmm.
I used to coach swimming, and I coached Tail Van Ryn. You heard of him? He was one of the best swimmers at UT, the Canadian record in the 50. I beat him the year before in the 200 IM.
Okay.
I said, oh, yeah, I know Tail. He came third when I came second to Lakowitz last year in the. Oh, really? So that was a plus.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the big plus. The big plus was, he said, where are you from? I said, Peterborough. I said, oh. I was the first instructor at Miller Bowl for the summer lacrosse camp.
Wow.
Did you ever meet Bobby Allen? And that was it. That was the door that opened for me to get into teaching. And I said, well, I had Mr. Allen for 4 years of phys ed. In fact, he's the one who's encouraged me to be a teacher, because he asked me to sub for him one day when he was having his nose fixed from a lacrosse stick. And that was the beginning of my interest in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a cottage in Stony Lake. Known Bob a long time now. Yeah. But that was it. All of a sudden he's interested in me. So he ends up offering me a job. And I said, well, it sounds good. He says, there's one problem. We don't have a swimming pool. And I said, well, I can't come then. I have to have a swimming pool. That's why I want to go to North York. Mm-hmm. Well, up the street, I'll phone a friend of mine. So he phoned the principal up the street, George Irwin's his name, and he said, I've got a guy here I think you could be interested in, and he likes to coach swimming. And I got on the phone with him, and sure enough, I got a job. 2 years later, I'm working at Vanier. He's my principal. His son is in my grade 10 class. I talked him into coming out for the swim team. 4 years later, he won OFSA, set a Canadian record, went on to win the CIAUs. Twice. And I ended up being best man at his wedding. All of this goes back to one name, Bob Allen. And he's opened the doors and the vision of many, many people, myself in particular, but many, many people in Peterborough.
So you can pick that one moment and pretty much build your entire life from there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a turning point in my life. Meeting Jack Foote was a real plus. Turns out he was an Olympic swimming official and his daughter was a swimmer, and we got along great. Mm-hmm. I've only seen him 2 or 3 times since, but every time I've seen him, I thanked him.
That's really nice that you can. So is that up there with your 2-year-old moment? Is it the same type of feeling?
Well, it certainly set me up for what I was going to do with my life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one.
Do you feel like you owe your life to swimming in a way?
In many ways, yes. Mm-hmm. I used to think it was the most important thing in my life. There's the slip right there. No. And that's when I learned it wasn't. And that's how I learned it wasn't. And that's fine too. Yeah.
Now, we talked about swimming a ton here, but we haven't touched on what's right beside you, a paddle and paddling and being on the lake, being a swimmer. Water sports go hand in hand, I guess.
They do.
So do you have a matching passion? Is one above the other?
They are matching. I do both every day, all summer. I paddle every morning. I try to swim every evening. Depends on the conditions. Depends on how cold the water is.
Yes.
But I got involved in swimming, in paddling, sorry. When I was 8 years old, I was at the Crow's Landing Regatta, and a big man came out with his Walter Walker boat. Name's Les Crow. Now, I've seen a lot of good paddlers. Gus Mortimer, Bill Taylor, Clarence McElmore, Reg Bloomfield. I've met and seen lots of good paddlers, but Les Crow is the best. And as an 8-year-old, watching that big man go around Gull Rock was really inspirational to me. And I saw him do it many times. Mm-hmm. Now, he stopped paddling around the area when I bought the cottage and started to get involved in a serious way because he got into marathon racing. And he was up in Quebec and Northern Ontario and Michigan, and he was all over the place. So he didn't see him on the lake very often. But my favorite race of all time, I was lined up at Juniper for the long distance race, about 50 boats, and I look along the line and see who's there, and I'd been having my way basically for a few years now, winning, and they hold up the race because there's one more entrant. It was Les Crow, paddle across in front, and I thought, there he is, there's the man. He stopped and backed his boat right up beside me. And I was just about shaking in the boat. The boat was going like this. And he looked over and said, Lenny, I didn't know he even knew my name. I was hoping you'd be here. And I thought, wow, this is special. Gun went, off we went. We were in the, just grab this for a moment. We're in those canoes. This is a English 20 model built by Walter Walker, the gentleman builder in Lakefield, especially for me. And he was paddling his. We're both using Clement paddles. But a key difference is I'm a right. He's a left. And when you paddle on the right side, the boat is going to go to the left a bit. So you have to do a steering stroke. And there are different types you can use. So the boat never goes straight. It goes a little left and a little back, a little left and a little back. Whereas Les's boat, paddling on the left, will go a little to the right, a little back, a little to the right. So you have a situation where we're doing this, and you know what's going to happen. We're going to run into each other. So we both sprint off the line. We don't want to steer much because it slows you down. And we're getting closer and closer. And I thought, what are we going to do when we hit? But I was so excited about staying up with him, I just said, I don't care. And I kept paddling. We never touched. Because the wash from his boat straightened me out. The wash from my boat straightened him out. We're like on rails. And we're heading straight out. We don't need to steer. That dawned on Les, same time it dawned on me. We're wailing away. No steering stroke. And we are walking away from everybody in a hurry. So I'm thrilled. This is great. We're out there head to head. We're starting to get near the island that we have to go around. I'm on the inside. And I think this is cool. I don't know what I'm going to do, but at least I'm in the best spot.
Yep.
Well, all of a sudden, this boat starts to slow down. And I thought, I'm 25 years younger than this guy. Of course he's going to slow down. I should be faster. And then I thought, wait a minute. This is Les Crow you're talking about. He doesn't slow down unless he wants to. And Les was always known for, well, in a nice way, being a bit of a snake in the grass.
Okay.
You know? I mean that in a nice way, because I really admire Les Crow. And I thought, why would he be slowing down? Oh, I know what he's doing. He's going to let me get ahead so that he can cut in behind me and be on the inside track. So I slowed down. And he slowed down more, and I slowed down. Eventually, he stopped paddling. I stopped paddling. We're just gliding along together. He's looking at me, I'm looking at him. People are starting to catch up now. There are some good paddlers back there. And I thought, it's like a game of chicken. And because I didn't know what to do, I did nothing. And all of a sudden, he starts wailing away again, and I start paddling again. And I did a draw. My boat went around, and the wash sent him out. And by the time he got back, I was a boat ahead. Never caught me. And when I got across the finish line, I waited for him, and he came in, and he was second. But he came in and he said, "Well, Lenny, I was just starting to reel you back in, but I had a bit of a problem." And he holds up his Clement paddle, and it's in two pieces. And I looked at that, and I thought, Larry Kane, our best paddler in Canada ever, he wouldn't break a paddle because you always put the paddle all the way in. The only way to break a paddle is if you got to be strong, but it's if you put the tip in and you don't sink it.
Yep.
And so I don't know whether he did it intentionally or whether he had a broken paddle in the bottom of the boat. At that time, I would never put anything past Les. But I got to know the man very well, paddled with him often. Every time I'd see him on Stony Lake, I'd be in a kayak usually. They're faster than the marathon boat he had. And I'd design so I could get beside him, and we'd paddle along together, and I'd listen to some stories, and I really admired the man, that's for sure.
And I guess it's just the same as car racing or anything. You got to get the inside track, or just
very, very important.
Yeah.
Racing a canoe is very different from swimming. Swimming, you have your own lane, nobody else is in it. It's the same depth everywhere, water conditions. You've rented it to do your thing. When you're paddling, where's the wind? What kind of boat are you in? Where's the wind? Where are you in your boat? There are a lot of things to consider racing a canoe. And the inside track at that island was important. If Les had if he'd thought it out, he would have lined up on the other side of me. And then it probably would have been a different story. And he would have broken his boat, his paddle.
Do you enjoy the solitude of being out on your own, or do you enjoy the competition of racing more?
I'm relatively rare, perhaps, in that I enjoy training. I only raced once a year, swimming the miles. It's the only time I raced. The only reason I need to race. The rest of the time, I train. I like training by myself, especially paddling, because you can think about all sorts of things, and you're looking at beautiful Stony Lake. It's early in the morning. Most people aren't up. It's a marvelous way to greet the day. But I don't play bridge like my brother does. I play chess. So generally, with the exception of dragon boating,
Yeah.
I've always been a one individual sport person. Dragon boating is the only team sport I ever really got into.
And it took you pretty much everywhere.
Well, I went halfway around the world with this paddle too. This says Sing Fi, by the way, which is a Shining Star Athletic Club. I was the only Caucasian on the team. And they called me the Gweilo. So I kept saying, tell the Gweilo this, tell the Gweilo this. What is the Gweilo thing? So one day I asked the captain of the team, what does Gweilo mean? He said, it means dishonorable white person. And I said, well, gee, I should be offended. Why don't you call me an honorable white person? We don't have a name for that. So I became the Gweilo, and I took it as a compliment.
Okay.
And it was fine. But I went, did a lot of racing. We won a lot of races. It was a very good team. We won a lot of races. Went to Japan, Jimi, Hong Kong, California, and the usual Montreal, Toronto.
Give me an idea of the scale of those competitions.
The scale?
Yeah, in terms of, was it something like a Stony Lake event where you might have friends and family, or was it?
No. Dragon boating is the second most participated in sport in the world after soccer.
Wow.
Because China has a team in every village. The amount of racing, it's gone on for 2,000 years. So it's a Chinese sport, 2,000 years. And you go to a regatta, there are thousands of paddlers. And they come from all over the place. So, yep.
Which race is the one that's front of mind?
Well, I remember a saltwater race once because the waves were coming at us. It was an inlet from the ocean. And when we finished, we were covered in salt. That was an interesting race. But
Where was that one? Where was that one?
that was in California,
Okay.
Northern California, San Francisco. But the race I remember best, I was steering. And it was at Key West. And I was hired by Great White North. It was a dragon boat company that I worked for years. And we were down steering. And the problem was they had the naval base there, and the wall was at least 20 feet high because they had the big boats come in. Well, it was windy that day. And on the shelf, the water was coming in waves about 3 feet. And then they'd come off there at an angle, and you get haystacks. So the waves are going like this.
Okay.
And we have to paddle through this stuff. And in the very first race, there were 3 boats. Mine was the only one that finished. The others dumped. I was lucky that I even got there. We immediately cut down the number of paddlers from 20 to 16. And this was their very first regatta. They had sent down somebody to teach them a little bit, but basically these were all rookies. Well, in the afternoon, the water settled down a bit. I have a crew out there that's never raced, and I'm early. And I look back, and the other boats aren't even loading yet, and I didn't want them to get cold, so I said, we're going to take a little swing around and to get to the starting line instead of going straight down. So I turned left, turned south, and started paddling. And we're moving along, and I'm calling out, trying to get them to paddle in sync and everything. And all of a sudden, things change. I've just gone off of the continental shelf. I am now in what's called ocean. The waves are no longer 3 feet high, they're 10 feet high. And they are 30 to 40 feet apart. And I'm in a 30-foot boat with 22 people in it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, doing this, I'd never had this experience before. We have no business being out there. And these people depend on me. They look on me as Captain Canada. I came because Canadians are very good paddlers. And we're down there to help them and to keep them safe. Meanwhile, I didn't really have control of the boat. I hardly had control of my bladder. It was getting pretty scary. And just when I was starting to panic, an 85-foot Coast Guard cutter came up to within 1 boat length of me. And a fellow with a bullhorn said, "Turn around now." And these guys had guns. So I said, "Yes, sir." So I told everybody to keep paddling, always keep connection. Mm-hmm. And as we're going up one of these waves, I turned the boat, and right on the top of the wave, somehow we got around, and we didn't dump and came down the next wave.
You're surfing at that point.
And I was terrified.
Yeah.
The whole thing, I was like, what am I doing out here? And I got told off pretty strongly when I got in. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you have any run-ins with wildlife in the oceans?
No, but I did a lot of coaching in Florida near Melbourne on the inland waterway. You've got 6 miles of 100 meters across, dead straight, protected. Perfect place to train. I would have there was manatees you had to watch out for. And every once in a while, a boat would run up on a manatee. And these marvelous creatures weigh 1,000 pounds, and they can upset a boat very easily and have.
Mm-hmm.
You also would have the dolphins with the steering oar. I'm steering, and they love the oar. And I'd have a couple of dolphins going along there, and I'd be yelling at the people to keep paddling. Meanwhile, I'm playing with the dolphins. It was a lot of fun going to that camp. I went to those camps for about 10 years.
That is amazing. That had to be quite the connection with the water and everything around you. And then you have dolphins flying alongside you.
The dolphins, they were lovely. At first, the paddlers had to stop and look at the dolphins. Okay, stop, we'll look at the dolphins. I'm here to train, you know, come on. After a while, it became old hat, but they liked to be near the oar. So I got to
Did you have a hypothesis as to why that was? Did you?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know. Dolphins, I don't know the mind of a dolphin. I just know they have one.
Yeah.
They have one, and they're a lot better in the water than I am. So.
Well, relatively speaking, compared to everybody else, you're doing pretty well. Now, your son Tyler as well. He's with the Canadian national team for dragon boat racing.
My son Tyler didn't start paddling. I got him involved in dragon boat paddling as a motorboat driver.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was I was coaching, and we had the little coach boat, and Tyler was hired to come down and drive the motorboat. Well, he listened to me coaching, and he started to anticipate what's Dad going to say. So we pull up beside, and he'd start saying he's going to tell 3 and 4, he's going to switch them, and he's going to tell 2 they have to do this, 7 at the back they have. And he'd started to anticipate and get it right. So one day they were missing a coach, and Tyler said, I think I can.
Mm-hmm.
So he started coaching dragon boating. He hadn't paddled. He never paddled until he left Queen's. And he was involved with the Queen's team, the alumni team, as their coach and steersperson. And he married my daughter-in-law from that boat. It was called the Love Boat. Three couples got married from that first boat.
Okay.
And I actually got to paddle with them once. It was nice. But he started paddling himself. Turns out he was better than I was. He's had 20 years of paddling now, and not this past summer, but the summer before, he was in Thailand at the World Championships. They had 3,000 paddlers, 20 countries. And the Canadian team, the official national team that he was on, Masters team, won the 200, the 500, the 1,000, the 3,000. They won all 4 of the races. So he's got gold medals from all of those.
Where does that stack up for you? And it's not a personal accomplishment, but in terms of your sports moments, where...
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I wish I'd left the lake to go over and see him, but I didn't want to miss paddling every morning. So he brought the medals back. We've got lots of pictures, and he was in touch with us every day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was a thrill for him. Now, last summer, he qualified for the Canadian outrigger team to go to the World Championships in Hawaii. Well, that got canceled because of COVID,
yeah.
And it's been canceled for this summer too. But he's still on that team as well. So he's outstripped his dad as a paddler. He's a couple inches taller, has even longer arms, but he knows what to do with them, that's for sure.
Amazing. Now,
Yeah.
And it's actually not a wonder that couples came out of paddling. You got to really be in sync, I guess, to be paddling in a boat together. I've been in a tandem kayak before. I called it like a relationship tester. It's,
okay.
It's a sign that things might not work out, I guess, if you're knocking paddles. But as you go forward and you reflect back on everything, what sticks back out to you the most? Is it one paddling memory, or is it one swimming memory in terms of your athletic accomplishments?
I have a particular swimming memory that, and like most swimmers, you ask them about their career, you ask them, what was your personal best? What was your event? Mine was usually individual medleys, but what was your best time? And they'll be able to tell you the best time, which pool it was in, who also was in the race, their state of fitness at the time, and whatever. When I was 37, I was racing in the Ontario Masters at UT, and a man by the name of Tony Jarvis, I was to race him. He had several world records, two-time Olympian for Britain, 68 Mexico and 72 Munich. And he was good. He was really good. And I had never raced him before, and we were racing 200 free. I'm more of a 400 man, he's more of a 50 and 100. So 200's kind of partway between. Okay, people aren't expecting me to do much, but I was ahead of him at the 100. And I was having the swim of my life, and I knew it. I wasn't missing any turns, everything was perfect. 7th term is short course, so there's 8 lengths. 7th term, I came off kicking like the hammers of hell. I was going to finish this up. This was my best race ever. He left me like my feet were tied to the other end. And at first I panicked. And then I thought, no, this is your very best swim ever. And so I put my head down and I just hammered it. Now, he beat me. He was only a half a second off the world record. I was another half a second behind him. But I remember that like it was yesterday. I followed the breathing pattern I decided to do. Everything worked the way it was supposed to. There's a good reason why he left me. He was better. He was a lot better, actually. The fact that I was even near him was kudos for me. That is my all-time favorite race. I never, ever swam that fast again.
What's it like to tease a world record, or to be within just a fraction of a world record? What is that feeling like? It has to be a reflective moment to realize that.
Well, I did set 2 Masters world records in 400 IM, which is more of a specialty of mine. But I knew they were soft. If I did them, they couldn't have been. This isn't Mark Spitz we're talking about here. Or, you know, this is Len Minty from Peterborough. These records will be broken, and they'll be broken soon, because there are a lot better swimmers out there than I. And they didn't last too long either. But at that moment, I had swum the fastest 400 of a 40-year-old. That was nice.
Yeah.
That was nice, you know, good for me. But, you know, it didn't last long, I knew it.
Is the Canadian swimming, I guess, culture, is it something that's growing? Is it something that's tight-knit? I'm assuming it's a small world, Canadian swimming.
Canadians are good swimmers. It used to be Canada and Australia behind the States. Now, every country has very, very good swimmers. Canada still has a large number of swimmers, but when you look at swimming and paddling, these are not sports that everybody wants to do. And in the summer, you've got lots of choices. It used to be, well, I'll do track and field here, and I'll do a little swimming here, but every sport is all year. And I remember when hockey was, well, you start in November, you finish in March. I mean, that's when it's cold.
Yeah.
Well, everything is all year. So if you're going to be a paddler or a swimmer or anything, you've got to dedicate your whole year to it. And there's a lot of sports, and there are a lot of sports that are a little easier to become better fast. Paddling in particular is very, very difficult. It takes you years to be able to balance in the boat. Well, how many 12-year-olds want to spend their summer doing that? They'd rather play soccer. play lacrosse. There are lots of things to do. So I don't think the sports are growing. At the high end of things, Canada still has champions, very, very good swimmers, good paddlers.
Is there something you believe could happen, let's say Peterborough specific, that would help that happen?
Well, they had the Canadian Paddling Championships once in Peterborough. It was 1972, because a good friend of mine, Jim Farintosh, the one who got me into dragon boating and was my first real coach in paddling, won the Canadian Championships at Little Lake, right in front of Beavermead. He said the hard part was stopping before you ran into the lift lock, because it's 1,000 meters, and it's hard to find a straight 1,000 down there. I understand that competitive paddling has started again in Peterborough. I don't know how it's going, because I'm on Stony Lake all summer. Yeah.
And the Dragon Boat Festival in Peterborough, you had a big part in that up until 2009?
Yep. Well, when I moved to Peterborough in '99, I was phoned by Meredith Cosburn, right out of the blue, didn't know who she was. She said, I'm a breast cancer survivor, I have a friend in the survivor team, and you were giving a clinic down in Coburg. Actually, it was in Port Hope, to their Coburg team. And a girlfriend of mine said if I wanted to start a team here, that you've had the experience and maybe you could coach it. So I said, you find me 22 people and a boat, I'll coach you. Well, she did. And so I was the first coach of Sing 5. My actual coaching paddle is over on the wall there. This is actually from that group, nice little thing. And I started coaching here. Marvelous experience, met wonderful people. Did that for about 9 or 10 years. You know, and then you change, you start doing other things.
Do you have any goals left? Is there anything you still want to accomplish in swimming or paddling?
I'm training in a very tippy boat right now. And I would very much like to become a master of it. And that is going to be a tall order. Partly because my balance isn't as good as it used to be. And it's just tippy. And tippy means fast.
All right.
And it's, even with my heart condition the way it is, I'm an atrial fib, so I only get 2/3 of my oxygen. So that's the biggest thing that limits what I can do. But I can still go fast in this thing because it's so fast. But you don't like to go fast upside down. So that is a goal of mine that every morning I work on. I also built a boat with Les Crow's help. I built my own boat and it turned out pretty well. And I like to go out and paddle in it. My own, build your own boats.
Did Les
nice.
build in some sort of like self-destruct button or something if you're ever racing again?
I used to do it blocked up, kneeling down the correct way, with a paddle twice the length of this. Then I found this summer, all of a sudden, didn't have the balance. I was just wobbling around, saving myself all the time. Oh, rats. End of an era in a way. So I built a seat, got a different paddle, and now I paddle it seated down, like you would in a kayak, only a single blade, switching sides, and I'm learning how to control the boat. That's a challenge, and it's a pretty fast boat.
Well, there's actually one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and it seemed like just a cool race to me. We're nearing the end here, but it was a race from Stony Lake to Peterborough in a kayak.
Yes.
And you won that. Just take me through the route. And
that was the Orca race of the Autonomy Region Conservation Association or Authority. And they set up a race so people could appreciate the beauty of the Autonomy Region. And the idea was you start at Young's Point, you end up on Little Lake, and they set up divisions for racing, and they set up division for cruising. And if I had an ounce of sense, I would have gone into cruising and enjoyed it. But no, I had to go in the racing, so I was in the kayak division, and you'd paddle like mad and get up and start running like mad with your boat, put it back in over the lock and go again to the next lock. And it was a 2.5 hour kind of ordeal. I have one incident that happened that I remember in particular. I put my boat in, and it was a drop of about 3 feet down. It's a very small cockpit. It was a tippy boat. I had to sort of slither down the cement, get my feet in the cockpit, and then wiggle myself into the position. And I thought, oh, I made it. I didn't dump. Reached up for my paddle. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm reaching around. Some kind soul came and pushed it with his foot so I could just reach it. I don't know who the Good Samaritan was, but I said, thank you, because my race would have been over. I would have had to have dumped and gone 100 meters down to get out and run back to get my paddle. So you can get yourself into funny situations like that. But,
And now, one more thing, the Gordon Minty pool. You were the first one in, the last one out. I saw the Peterborough Examiner article
you've
about
done your
that.
homework, yes.
Well, people at the Hall of Fame did their homework, and I got to benefit from it. But 37 years, and you're the first one in, the last one out. And I guess it was you determined beforehand that you wanted to be the last one out of the pool named after your father. But
yeah, and my brother and my 2 nephews were there as well. The thing about when they opened that pool, the Minty pool, there were 8 of us, swimmers of dads, who swam a 100-mile relay, starting at 6 o'clock on the Friday and finishing just before the opening ceremonies on the Sunday. And we had in groups of 4 for 4 hours doing a relay. We weren't raising money for anything. We were just doing it, just sort of as a tribute to Dad.
yeah,
And it wasn't that it was written up in the papers or anything. It was no big deal. But it was to us. It was something we just felt we had to do. And that was a lot of swimming. I also got to set the first record in the pool, which was nice.
it's nice.
Yeah.
Now, I ask everybody this in the last question. Normally, it's what do you feel like your sports legacy is in Peterborough?
Well, I certainly helped get the dragon boating launched. Around Stony, where I've spent the last 48 summers, I've taught swimming, paddling, sailing, all sorts of things there. So there's that. But the most important thing to me from all of this happened 10 years ago in 2011 when I was inducted into the Peterborough Sports Hall of Fame. That was, to me, the high point of everything I could have achieved, because it was recognized by my hometown. And I can't devalue it. It is very, very big, very important to me that I ended up in the place where my dad was, and Mick McGee and Bob Allen and Les Crow and Rick Kinsman, and to even be in the same sentence with those really great ones, it's an honor. And they can't take it away from me. They can't fool me. Len, we made a mistake. You're not there anymore. No, I'm here for good. And it's wonderful. It's very reassuring to me. In many ways, I don't have to achieve anything else. I've been recognized for what I've done.
Well, Len, thank you so much for sharing your stories about paddling, about swimming. Very interesting.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've got quite excited about it.
I really enjoyed it, and thanks again.
Thank you very much.